I'm unhauling a lot of books today. Today's unhaul is going to be of epic proportions because I think I have exactly 50 books that I'm going to be removing from my library, and I'm so excited about it. These have been in the corner of my room. These stacks of books have been growing since my last unhaul. I've been pretty much doing them seasonally, and I think that my last one was, I might have filmed it at the end of March, but I think it was posted in April. So we have a good few months worth of books here, and I think unhaul around 30 to 35, so 50 is quite a bit more than that. But I do have like some big series that I've read that I don't want anymore that I'm going to be unhauling today, as well as a bunch of books that I've read for different projects, like the Romantasy rundown, and everything that kind of gets removed from my shelves and the stacks through Shelve It or Scrap It, and then of course just the general stuff that I've read and I don't want anymore. So before we get into this, actually, because I get asked every single time, what do I do with my books when I unhaul them? So the majority of them I do sell on Vinted. It is the easiest way for me to rehome my books. It does mean that I can only sell them to people in the UK, but it's honestly the only way that I can do it without it becoming this huge chore, because Vinted is so easy to use. And if you are interested in the books I'm unhauling, then I would recommend going ahead and following me on Vinted, because I usually start listing the books and getting them out of my house before you guys will actually see the video. So it's the best way to see what it is that I'm going to be unhauling and get your hands on it if you want it. So following me is kind of the best way to be notified about what it is that I'm actually going to be selling. Anything that I don't sell on Vinted, so any crusty dusty paperbacks, anything I've picked up secondhand that isn't in like great condition, just goes straight back to the charity shop from whence it came as well. So everything goes to good use. But before I get into this mammoth stack of books that I'm going to be unhauling, I need to tell you about a product that you are going to be desperate to haul from the sponsor of today's video, which is Wild. You've probably heard of Wild by now because they have been revolutionizing the body product industry over the last 5 years by reducing plastic waste. The first product that they launched in 2020 was of course their iconic deodorant, which is powered by plants, meaning it is aluminium salt and paraben free. Since 2020 though, their product range has expanded significantly, pushing them ever closer towards their goal of eradicating plastic waste from our bathrooms, which is why I am so excited to be introducing you to Wild's brand new product, which is their roll-on deodorant. I changed over to Wild about 3 or 4 years ago now, when I discovered that regular store-bought deodorants weren't really working for me. I was just sweating through them really easily. It was kind of gross. However, in summer and when I'm on holiday, I do actually much prefer a roll-on deodorant for the lightweight feel, but also the lack of residue when it's really hot and I'm wearing strappy tops. So I'm so happy that I can now get all of that plus 24-hour protection from Wild's roll-on deodorant without having to compromise the environment or fall back on brands that actually don't really work for me at all. So if you too much prefer a roll-on deodorant and that sleek, slippery armpit feel, then I am so happy to let you guys know that for a limited time, if you click on the link right at the top of my description box or scan the QR code on screen, you can enter my code, which is WildBecca, at checkout and get yourself 20% off your entire Wild order. Once again, a big thank you to Wild for sponsoring this one. So for the unhaul, we're going to go in no particular order, although actually some of these do kind of belong together and are now all spread out and scattered. So we'll see if I can gather them into groups as we go. But as usual, I'm not going to be telling you too much about like the actual synopsis or plot of the book or anything like that. I'll probably give you just like a little bit of a brief overview of why I'm no longer keeping them, but all of these books for the most part have been featured on my channel at some point, most of them within like the last 3 months, so my thoughts on them have been covered like quite extensively and I don't need to kind of repeat myself to that degree. But we'll start off, I guess, with the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. So let's dig all of these out because I think we have 7 books in total. I am honestly devastated that I did not enjoy Wheel of Time. One, because I invested in half of the series. Whoa. When we got halfway through, I realized, because I listened to the audiobooks for most of these and I did get the first like 10 or so on Audible before I managed to get myself onto Libby and I could get them from there. But to start off with, I was paying like $10.99 for the paperback books and then also using an Audible credit on them. And this is a series that I'm quite ambivalent about at best. I'm so glad that I read Wheel of Time. We all know it is one of the big adult epic fantasy series that everybody talks about. So I'm really glad that I could have read one of the cornerstones, the building blocks of the genre, which was my main interest in it to start off with, so that I can kind of see its influence in more modern fantasy. But man, was this series a drag. I'm also upset because I love these editions and they're very, very similar to my Game of Thrones paperbacks with the like landscapes on them and the way the spines all line up. They're so pretty, but sadly this series is not for me. I also find it difficult to unhaul fantasy series or series that I finished, because I feel like when I've dedicated so much time to something, I kind of want to represent that on my shelves, but I didn't enjoy these enough for them to take up so much space. So just to run through very quickly what we've got. Book 1. Oh, there she is. I was like, does she even exist? Book 1 is The Eye of the World. We also have book 2, which is The Great Hunt. I'm gonna have to take all my tabs out of the first few of these. Book 3 is The Dragon Reborn. This is where the tabbing ended, so you can really see where I lost steam. And then book 4 is The Shadow Rising. Book 5 is The Fires of Heaven. Honestly, I couldn't tell you the names of most of these books either. 6, Lord of Chaos. 7, A Crown of Swords, and the rest of them I got from my library and listened along to the audiobooks at the same time as well. They have cleared so much space off my paperback shelves, it's great. Something else that came off my paperback shelves that's been sitting there for a really long time. Let me know if I should put this on Vinted, because I did pick it up secondhand. It has, I think this should go to the charity shop if I'm being honest, because it does have like spotting in the inside, but I know a lot of people really do covet this. I picked this up secondhand and I read it like pre-booktube, so it's been on my shelves for a long time, but it is the white paperback of The Night Circus with the red sprayed edges. So I didn't love this book. I don't know whether I expected it to be a little, not faster paced, but have more of a point to it, because it's mainly about the vibes, if I'm being honest, and I expected to love it when I read it. This was pre-booktube when I was a lot less picky about what I read, and I think I gave it 3 stars and I thought that it was quite slow and I left it very underwhelmed. However, I do really like the edition and I really wanted to like this book, so this has been on my shelves for like 10 years. Was it published even 10 years ago? 2012, so yeah, like 13 years ago now. Like, look, the condition of this is not great, so I personally would not list this on Vinted. I would donate this back to my charity shop, but I don't know if anybody would want it because of the edition that it is when it's not in great condition. Let me know. If a few of you want it, I'll just put it on there for like £1. Some more paperbacks. These are sadly indie paperbacks and also almost a full series. Well, not a full series, but everything I own from this series. I am unhauling a bunch of the Blood and Ash books from Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I love the indie paperbacks of these. They're weighty, but they're also beauties. But I really enjoyed books 1 and 2. I really did not like book 3, and then recently for the episode of Shelve It or Scrap It that's just gone up, I started A Shadow in the Ember and I was like, I don't even know why I'm bothering to invest any time in this, because I have no desire to continue with the Blood and Ash series now. It's been too long and I'm still salty about book 3. But Blood and Ash marks like a time in my channel, like when I was not pivoting, but exploring fantasy romance a lot more. So I've kept book 1, but I'm unhauling Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, which I did really love. I gave this 4 or 5 stars. Crown of Gilded Bones, which I maybe gave a 3 quite generously because I enjoyed the last 50 pages. And then A Shadow in the Ember, which I've heard is really good, but I just don't see the point in reading it if I know that I'm no longer going to be invested in this series. I also had It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey on my shelves because I gave the sequel, which is Hook, Line and Sinker, 5 stars. And it's weird with romance series because they are a duology, but they're also like standalones in terms of the relationships that you follow. You're following each of the Bellinger sisters. It makes sense to read them in order because the plot is kind of interconnected and follows on from each other, but if you're just reading it as a casual romance, they don't have to be read as a series. And I gave It Happened One Summer 2 stars, so eventually I have decided that I'm going to be unhauling this one, and then I'll keep hook, line and sinker because that was a 5-star read for me. I feel like it makes sense to kind of read them in order, but then for series like this that are series of standalones, you can then unhaul the ones that you don't want to keep. I guess you don't need to keep the whole bunch. I also recently read For Shelve or Scrap It, Hotter in the Hamptons by Tinks. This one is a contemporary. It's not a romance, but it does heavily follow a romantic relationship. But this it girl who is like borderline cancelled, so she goes to the Hamptons to lick her wounds and develops a relationship with the female journalist that wrote an expose about her, which kind of ruined her. So we do have a lot of romance in here, but the point of the book is more like self-growth. I described this in Shelve or Scrap It as kind of like a book that if you're going on holiday with a stack of paperback books that you're intending to read and not bring back, this would be a perfect fit for that. It was entertaining, but I have no need to keep it. I will literally never reread it again. I also DNF'd bookmark. I DNF'd The Surface Breaks by Louise O'Neill. This one is a Little Mermaid retelling. I'm just kind of past the point of caring about young adult fairy tale retellings. They were all the rage back in the day. This one is not an outstanding one anyway. Like, the general reviews on it were quite mid, and the 100-ish pages that I read of it were fine, but didn't leave me super compelled to continue. I'm wondering if we can get all of the books from the Romantasy rundown to talk about. So in April, I posted a vlog series called the Romantasy Rundown, where I read the first 12 months of Fairy Loot's Romantasy subscription because I've been feeling out of touch with the genre. Like, it was something that I really loved and I wanted to explore a lot more, that I was really enjoying. And as time has gone on and the genre has become a lot more popular, I've found that I'm enjoying a lot less books. So I wanted to know whether the issue was me or the books, and I thought the Fairy Loot subscription would be a perfect way to do that because they provide as a subscription a range of books to cater to a range of people who have different preferences within the same genre. So I took a note of like my thoughts and general ratings, also the spiciness of the books, the different tropes that we had in the books, to see if I could figure out what I enjoyed, like if I enjoyed the genre anymore at all, but also specifically what I enjoy about the genre, so I can get more hits rather than misses. I am unhauling 8 of those 12 books, but I did enjoy 5 of them. One of these, I don't want a special edition series of it. I don't care about the series enough, but it was a very entertaining read. Some of them I DNF, some of them I gave 3 stars to. 4 of them I thoroughly enjoyed and have kept. So The Curse of Blood and Wolves was one of the misses for me. This one is essentially like a paranormal werewolf romance that was very mid. It's by the same author as like those pumpkin spice books as well, which I also have no interest in. Paranormal romance is different to fantasy romance or romantasy to me for a start, and shouldn't necessarily be in a romantasy subscription, although I do accept that it is fantastical and romantic, so it does kind of fit. But also cozy fantasy or cozy stories in general, also not a big fan of, so I think this author is just not one for me. Nectar of the Wicked I enjoyed and was intrigued about, but this is a little bit of a darker love interest. He's not the nicest guy, and I felt like towards the end of this it was just a little bit too gratuitous, and I didn't like the way that he behaved in light of like what happened at the end of this book. Firebird by Juliet Cross is a controversial one, which I talked about the controversy surrounding this book at the time that I read it, so I'm not going to touch upon it here. But the reason why I'm unhauling it is because I enjoyed the fantastical elements of it, but throughout the book it got more and more romantic, and I wasn't as interested in that. I was more interested in the politics of this world and the fantasy, and this is going to be a series of interconnected standalones, so following different characters but continuing the plot line. And I just know that the pattern of the series is going to be interesting initially, but then going more and more into romance as relationships develop, which is what I didn't like about book 1, so there's no point continuing. Lore of the Wilds, honestly, is a young adult fantasy that has a really out of place spicy scene so that it can be placed in the romantasy genre, and it feels weird. The Wren and the Holly Library was initially intriguing to me. This is one of the ones that I did like. However, I felt like the sexual tension tapered off about halfway, which kind of dampened my interest in the story because I had no reason to kind of be rooting for the romantic relationship anymore. And it was a 3-star read, I think, for me, and one that kind of fades from memory. Like, by the time I'd read the rest of the books for the romancy rundown, I'd kind of already forgotten about this one. This is the one actually that I really enjoyed. It is Bonded by Thorns by Elizabeth Helen. This is very surprising for me because I don't like reverse harem. I find that a book with so many love interests is just too many men for me to care about in a small amount of pages. However, this was entertaining. It was easy to read, and not all of the relationships developed immediately, which is what I've typically found with reverse harem I've read. So I gave it a low 4-star, very surprising. Would potentially continue on with the series if I had them on Kindle or in paperback. I don't want a special edition series of this though. It was more like fun and entertaining, not something that deserves like a prized place on my shelves, if that makes sense. And then we have the 2 that I DNF'd, and honestly, because I DNF'd them, I cannot remember why anymore, but they are The Starlight Heir by Amelie Howard and The Half King by Melissa Landers. I think this one I especially really wanted to like. It sounded interesting to me. This one was one that I was a little bit more mid on to start off with, but neither of them held my attention long enough for me to actually finish them. I also have this damaged copy of Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. So I ordered this from Illumicrate. I have the rest of the Illumicrate editions in this series, and this one arrived damaged, which was absolutely fine because Illumicrate replaced it straight away, but they didn't want the damaged one back, so now I kind of have it. Also, for special editions, I mean, we still have quite a few to get through, but a noticeable one, I am going to be donating my Arc of the Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Sometimes I keep arcs. This is a special one. This one is a signed and numbered arc that was sent to me by Glanks, which I'm very, very grateful for, of course. I read this because I've read all of the first law books by Joe Abercrombie and I have very mixed feelings on him. So there are some books that I like in the first law and some that I really, really did not. So I wanted to give him another chance in a different world and let this book kind of decide how I feel about Joe Abercrombie overall. And it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. There were things that I enjoyed about it, but it also had a lot of the things that I didn't enjoy about some Abercrombie books in it. So I just don't think he's really the author for me anymore. It's too hit or miss, and I've already read like 11 books by him at this point. So When the Devils by Joe Abercrombie was also the first book in the epic Fairy Loot subscription. It's a gorgeous edition. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. I think it's stunning and one of the prettiest Fairy Loot editions. I was so excited about the epic fantasy sub. I feel like it's going to become my favorite sub because epic fantasy is like my favorite genre. But yeah, sadly this one was just a miss for me. Absolutely gorgeous edition though. I was so excited to see what Fairy Loot did with it, and I think they really just hit it out of the park. I'm also unhauling The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julia Leong. This one I did enjoy. I thought it was a really cute story. Cute fantasy is not my favorite. I prefer epic stuff. Like, I like the stakes to be high. Small stakes fantasy like this one, and also sorcery and small magics aren't really my vibe. So I read both of these. I enjoyed them. I would recommend them to people who like this sort of thing. It's just not really my jam. I would say that the stakes do, well, it's like personal stakes fantasy, I've heard it called, where if you don't resolve the plot, something really bad would happen to the main characters, but like everybody else in the rest of the world would be absolutely fine. I also unhauled the Amelie Wenzhou books that I had. Did I try to read one of these? I must have DNF'd one of them, right? I have no recollection at this point of picking these up, but I'm sure that I attempted to read one of them. I think I DNF'd Song of Silver Flame Like Night. I've also read Blood Heir by Amelie Wenzhou and I gave it 2 stars. I then looked up the average rating of The Scorpion and The Night Blossom, which was very much in line with the 2 books that I've read and not enjoyed from Amelie Wenzhou, so I decided to unhaul this one as well. Not an author for me. The writing style, I think, I just don't really gel with. Like, I don't find it very absorbing. One that's really sad for me is that I'm going to be unhauling the first 2 books in the Feybound series. series by Sarah Elarifi. I really liked the first 2 books in the Ending Fire trilogy, although I didn't love the third one. And I did enjoy Feybound, but I don't feel like Cursebound fixed any of the things that I didn't like about Feybound. In fact, it just kind of like hammered them in, and I just wasn't super invested while I was reading Cursebound recently. My mind was drifting, like it was too easy for me to put it down or stop paying attention. So I just thought about the third book in this series and how when it arrives, I'm going to struggle with the motivation to actually want to read it. I'm probably not going to be following it super well if I did read it, because I was struggling to follow this one and pay attention. So I decided to cut my losses on this. We'll still read from Sarah Elarifi in the future though, because I did love the first 2 books in the Ending Fire trilogy so much. I am also unhauling this Illumicrate edition of The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is a edition that they did many years ago now, and I assumed that they were maybe going to do the rest. Doesn't seem likely. It's also not great condition, and it has never been great condition. Like, this is how it arrived, with like part of the spine wearing off, and I know that this was a problem with the edition. Oh, I really like the end papers though, and they replaced a bunch of them, but I received this as a gift, so I never kind of got in touch about that. And I've since picked up the illustrated edition of this book, which I much prefer, and I have paperbacks of some of the rest of the series. I have read this one, didn't love it, but it is a collection of short stories and I traditionally don't enjoy those, so I want to reread this and also carry on with the series to get to the core novels before I make my mind up on the series as a whole. And I do really love the illustrated edition, so I'll probably carry on collecting those if I enjoy the paperbacks. I'm also unhauling Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I am a huge fan of the Brown Sisters trilogy, which is one of my favorite contemporary romance series. This one definitely would recommend for a young adult contemporary. It was funny, it was cute, I enjoyed the romance. I just don't have a need to keep it. I'll probably never reread it, and it was a 4-star read as opposed to like the 5 stars that I gave the first 2 Brown Sisters books. One that I'm still torn about, actually, I might hold off listing this until I do make my mind up, because this was the last book that I scrapped for shelf or scrap it, and I kind of want to think about it a little bit. That is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. Now, I did read this when it was published because I received an arc of it. I'd already pre-ordered the Waterstones edition, so it's the one with the skulls on the edge, and I gave it 3 stars. I did enjoy it. I love Olivia Blake's concepts because they're so out there and unique and different. This one was just very chaotic, and if you know me, fast-paced chaotic stories that don't take a breath, which this really doesn't, are not for me. But I do have all of Olivia Blake's books. Now, what I think I really need to do is read something else from Olivia Blake, and if I don't enjoy that, then Olivia Blake isn't going to be an all-time favorite author for me, so I can unhaul the books that I don't like. I can keep the books that I do like, but right now they just look so nice next to each other on the shelves, and it's kind of one that I feel like I know I need to part with, but I'm also just really used to having it that I'm struggling to let go. So we'll let this one sit for a while, but it is officially in my unhaul pile. The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd-Jones. I think I enjoyed this, but it is a standalone fantasy. I don't tend to love those because I always want more from a fantasy world, and I think I remember really enjoying the world building and the way this story develops, and I kind of just did want more from it because I know I'm not getting more from it. It's something that I am going to forget. And actually, if I'm being honest, when I did see this in my unhaul pile, I was like, did I read this? Did I DNF this? Did I just put it in here because I don't want to read it? And it took me a moment to remember, like, no, not only did I finish that book, I also really enjoyed it. One that I was really sad to not enjoy is The Daughter of the Drowned Empire by Frankie Dyer Malice, because this is a fantasy romance series that is inspired by the Roman Empire, which, you know, one of my favorite things, is also very intricate politically, has a relatively complex plot, relatively complex world, and is fantasy first. However, I just felt like the world building was just really chaotic and all over the place. Like, it's inspired by the Roman Empire, it has like a historical kind of assumed feel to it, but then they go to restaurants and have reservations like it's 2020. So I was just really confused about little things like that. Like, they fly on the backs of birds, that's their transport, but that's never really explained. Like, it just is, and I felt like the world building needed a lot more work. I am very sad about this though, because I did really love the romantic relationship that was developing in here, but I also did not gel with the main character, so it's one that I wanted to love. And I was also sad because investment in a romantic relationship is difficult for me, which is why the romancy rundown happened. So to love the romance in here but not really like anything else about it was really frustrating. I also read Neon Gods by Katie Katie Robert. I think that Katie Robert is amazing at what she does, and what she does is writes really, really spicy, explicit BDSM smut. This one I preferred to the Wicked Villain series because it had more of an actual plot. Ooh, Freedom McFadden bookmark. So I enjoyed that about it, but then eventually as we developed the relationship, there was more and more smut, and that just is not my thing. If it is your thing, I think that Katie Robert is one to go for 100%, because I do think that she is good at what she does. It's just not something that I need to continue to keep reading because it's not my thing, you know? I also unhauled Wicked Beginnings by L.A. Cotton. This is one, I think. Oh no, it's not. I thought it was signed and personalized to me, but it isn't. I picked this up from the free table at Rare one year. This one is like a young adult, new adult stepbrother romance, but I just was really put off by the way that the love interest is described, because it's essentially about this girl who goes to live with her step uncle. They're moving to the US and they're having a house built, so her and her dad move into her step uncle's house, I think. So it's step cousin romance, and his kids are like these icons around the school, and they're just described as being like big, bad and impressive, but they don't really do anything to explain why people feel that way about them, and I thought it was just really weird. I have a couple of Chinese fantasies here that I read when I was going to China. I tried to read Chinese fantasy on my trip. I did not enjoy either of these, although I did enjoy one more than the other. The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song. This is the one where I was really invested in one specific dynamic, because there's kind of like a love triangle in here where the main character is more interested in one character to start off with, and then she meets another one who she's also potentially going to be drawn to, and it's that second character that intrigues me. But aside from that, I just wasn't really vibing with the writing, the plot, or the main character. This one is a Mulan retelling as well. And then I read Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. This one I really liked the world building, because the main character is the daughter of an engineer trying to solve his murder, and she goes to the Engineers Guild and joins, like disguised as a boy, to try and figure out what happened to him. So I liked the steampunk element we had in here, and I did enjoy the plot, but it was the characters that I just really could care less about in this one. One of the only ones that I'm unhauling unread, kind of unprompted, is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I did not enjoy Priory of the Orange Tree. I really, really wanted to, because I love The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, but Priory of the Orange Tree was just really, really not for me. And trying to summon up the motivation to pick up this enormous book that is set in the same world as something that I did not enjoy from Samantha Shannon is really difficult for me. Like, this has been in the stacks for a long time, and I have dreaded it coming up the entire time. So it was time to let go of it. I am also really sad because I adore the cover design of this series as well. I think it's beautiful. I am also unhauling Lotus by Jennifer Hartman. This one I read a very long time ago. I gave it 3 stars. Kind of been lingering on my shelves, but we all know I need the space, so it was time to let it go. Gorgeous edition as well, because it's also like a very tall paperback, very floppy. This one is a serial killer relationship. Well, not with the serial killer. A girl's best friend went missing when she was a kid, and then he comes back, and it's found out that he went through this like really traumatic experience, and she tries to like help him work through it, and it's a romance. I enjoyed it. It was fine. I also have 2 books by V. Castro. The rest of the books that we're going to talk about actually are all from the episode of Shelve It or Scrap It, where I only read books by authors that I have more than one of their books, but I haven't read anything by them. And if I didn't enjoy the book that I tried, I had to unhaul everything else as well. So I tried The Haunting of Alejandra and I DNF'd it. It was just like so depressing. It was like tiring to read, and I know that is the author's intention, because it's trying to convey like the feeling of being the main character and all of the women in this generational line, but man, was it just a drag. So then I also unhauled Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro as per the rules of the episode. I did read Twisted Love by Anna Huang, and I did unhaul this, but I did enjoy it. So I gave this one 3 stars. All of the books in this series are available on KU, and so I didn't feel like I needed to keep this one because I don't intend to physically collect the rest of the series either. So I did get to keep my other Anna Huang book, which is it like King of Greed or King of Wrath? Whichever one is the first book in that series, I still have, but I am unhauling this one. To be honest, I didn't love this book, but I did really like Anna Huang's writing style, which is why I want to read more from her. I unhauled both of my Chloe Gong books. These were sad because I've wanted to read these Violent Delights for a really long time, and I ended up DNFing it. I got like halfway through and I just wasn't super invested in it, so that meant that I also unhauled Immortal Longings, which is sad. And then the Alison Saft books, these are the last two books that we have, yay. These are both very historical in, like, I think the period would be the Regency era, right? Which really just does not appeal to me. I have only really become invested in historical fantasy over the last couple of years. Before that, anything historical was a big no-no for me because I found it really boring. But I know what specific time periods I enjoy. Regency era with all of the poise and the propriety is not for me. And this one is definitely set in that era. I think it surrounds like dressmaking, right? This one's a YA fantasy, and then I think that this one is adult. This is the one that I read some of, but the time period and the tone, because of the time period, if that makes sense, really just put me off. And this one I think is set in a similar time period and is also YA, so I don't expect to like that one as well. And I had to unhaul it as per the rules of the episode. So those are the 50 books that I'm going to be unhauling. I have such a job ahead of me getting all of these on Vinted. Remember to follow me if you guys are interested. I might actually just leave these piled up in the middle of the floor to kind of force me to do it. And I also have another stack of books that I've been using for filming that I also need to shelve, so maybe it's going to be an organizational afternoon, which will, to be fair, be very satisfying, so I'm not complaining too much. There's worse ways to spend an afternoon. But down in my comments, don't let me know if you enjoyed any of these books. Well, you can if you want, but I'm not going to ask you to because that seems a little cruel when I didn't enjoy most of these. But if you would like to let me know that you were here and you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a rose emoji for, they are roses, right? They look like it, for Fragile Enchantment. Once again, a big thank you to Wild for sponsoring this one. Please don't forget that if you click on the link right at the top of my description box and use my code WILDBECCA, you can get 20% off your entire Wild order, including their brand new roll-on deodorants for a limited time. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head to my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you want to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go and nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.